because it's my theory that all you really need to do is listen and respond. That's it. Okay. Just listen and respond. If you listen and respond, that's all you need to do for TV. It's nothing at all like film, where you have to work the text, shape and sculpt the moment. If you do that on camera, it ruins it. It looks like you're schmacting for the camera. Okay. So the deal is to just arrive and listen and respond. It's so much less than what we do for theater. So my theory is, I mean, I did it at a real audition. You don't have to do it at a real audition. Is that I memorized just my lines and went in to an audition and just listened and responded. I didn't even read the scene. And it was a really good audition. They went with a guy for the role, but the casting director was like, wow, that was really good. I was like, it was for House of Cards. It was a lot of text. And she's like, you had to know the scene was about. I was like, I actually just memorized my lines and listened and responded. And the camera then caught me actually listening and responding because that's all I had.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It's the key. And part of it is that television and film writing is really the psychology of the character. We are watching the subconscious, right? And even an hour-long episodic, you're there to tell the story for the principals or to tell the story of the guest star victim, right? We're providing a lot of information because basically what an episodic is we have to have an entire Greek tragedy in 40 minutes. So there's a lot of information that has to get shuttled within the context of varied scenes with a lot of action. But there still has to be a lot of context provided. What's the background on this person? Every episodic you look at. Law and Order, they were arrested in 1992. They were on their way to the supermarket. They had a marriage that had been long for 10 years. You've got to know all that background story without it feeling like you're doing exposition. So a lot of the exposition has to be thrown away as if it's a matter of fact, right? We have to get that information to match how much visual information we're getting on television. So much storytelling is happening visually, but the characters actually have to know all of that is happening around them. It has to seem like that is their world and their history. So basically, television language is about the psychology of making your audience believe I've been living in this world for the last 20 years and it's totally real to me. And I had an amazing director. It was Bob Balaban, who directed me in Exonerated, but then he directed me in a movie called Bernard and Doris. And he's like, what you need to do is you need to create the reality of we're going into a board meeting with all the major board members and you're getting me prepared. And I'm your executive assistant and I've got to get all this stuff to you. And you know that every time we have this meeting, I screw up or the head of the board always nails me on finance and da 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 da. He's like, we have a 30-second scene. I need to see all that history in the scene. I was like, wow. He's like, that's called creating the reality. You're creating the reality of the relationship. You're creating the reality of the world, right? It's a different world. We are in a blue blood mansion. This is old money. You make $400,000 a year as an executive assistant. You live in a hotel next door to the office because you work 97 hours a week. Your boss flies you in for meetings. You are a big dog. He's like, we need to know that in 30 seconds. And all we have is 30 seconds. And I was like, whoa. He's like, it's in your psychology. You actually have to sculpt that. And he said to me, British actors do it really well. And Ray Fiennes is in this movie and Susan Sarandon's in this movie. And, you know, Susan and Ray had the script that day. Like, there's no getting the script a long time ahead. There just isn't. This was an HBO movie. And Ray Fiennes was absolutely mesmerizing. You believe that you were in 1942 and then again in 1980 something. From the moment he came into the frame. And he's like, that's sculpting a moment. I was like, well, where is that happening? He's like, in his mind. And I was like, He's like, why do you love Patrick? What's his name? Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart on Star Trek. And I was like, because I actually believe he's in the future. I don't believe nobody else is in the future. Will, his first, number one, I wanted to kill him. I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing, a barbecue in your backyard before the Super Bowl? That's not this world. I just did not believe that he was in this world. I was like, well, what is it that Patrick Stewart's doing? I mean, I actually asked him outside the doors when I went to see him on Broadway in The Tempest. I was like, I don't even know what you're doing in sculpting that world, but it's magnificent. And he was like, I am in a different world. Who would I be in this different world? Mm-hmm. I actually have to create that. And that's exactly what British actors do on stage. That's why when you see the RSC do All's Well That Ends Well, it's a completely different play than anything you've ever seen in the United States. I was like, what are they doing? They're sculpting the world of that time. Medieval, Black humor is in the air, people believing in demons, the church running everything and persecuting people, the plague is rampant. They are creating the reality of their world. In their mind's eye, they are actually in that place. They're not on stage. And because they shape it through their subconscious sort of crafting, we believe it. We are transported. It's why they do period stuff so well. And ours is sort of like, well, once you get past the cowboys, period stuff in America is pretty lame. I mean, you're basically like, no, they're on a sci-fi set in California. They're not in the past. But Brits sculpt and shape. On television and film, it's not the lines, getting the lines right that matters. It's the sculpting of the world. It's what I call creating the reality. And you can't do that unless your lines are memorized by rote. That's one, to really be convincing, because television writing is hugely expositional, hugely. You give it, if you were doing Fringe, whoo, I remember I had a monologue. It must have been an entire page, which in television is a lot. I had to go in for Julie Tucker, and she was like, yeah, I need all of that information in about 10 seconds. I was like, what? She's gonna need to be crystal clear. I was like, she said, because we needed to understand what's going on. We need to understand that we're at this facility. It's been hidden from the government for all these years. We need to understand your clearance. We need to understand so many facts that you're gonna relay to us. It needs to be matter of fact. Like everybody in the room already knows this. You're just reminding them so you can get what you want. And I was like, whoa. It's in the subconscious, which is why you can't be going on set trying to memorize lines. You can't be shaping moments. You can't be taking, okay, she needs to convince him to take this case. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna work that. This line, I'm going to convince him. This line, I'm going to guilt him. This line, I'm going to shame him. No. All that will look like is soap opera acting. Because you can't talk. When you're sculpting moments like that for the stage, it's all about elongating vowel sounds and using technical tricks with language to communicate an action. The camera doesn't want that. The camera wants this to be happening to you in real time right now. And you are going to this hospital to see this woman who has been beaten within an inch of her life. And you must get this man on board to take care of her, to defend her, or she's gonna be in the electric chair in 2 weeks. Like, it has to be happening in real time. So that's the first struggle. The second struggle is you're not getting the lines until you get to set. And more, as Shondaland has proven, we can make epic writing with lots of monologues really sing in America. So now everybody is writing that way. She has created a new genre in television that we haven't seen since, okay, West Wing, or broadcast news did it some. But like these epic monologues where these people are huge, tragic, mythic figures, basically, archetypes, and they have huge monologues. Mm-hmm. This is new to television and film. And there's tons of language, but it still has to come out of your mouth as the speed of theater. I mean, as the speed of TV, even though it feels like theatrical writing. So you're not shaping those moments. You're giving us a lot of information, and then you're working out your subconscious through the communication of that information. It has to be by rote. So basically, it's not what you're saying, it's what you need that's working through the lines. It's your subconscious idea of where you need to land. I need to get him on board with this. And I need to get him on board because this is what's at stake. It's in my heart. It's in my mind. He knows the rules of the game. All of that is unsaid. All of that, how the criminal justice system works. We, as Americans watching it, know how the system works. We also know the formula of this show. We know what kind of things are going to fall in the way. We know the witness kind of didn't have an alibi. We know all, it's a given, right? All of that has to be clear in your mind and in the reality of the world that you're shaping from the minute you speak. The second bit is that all the lines are changing on TV as we're speaking. And I'll give you an example. You get to a set, they've decided to shoot outside, for real. We are outside of a public school in Manhattan, in the Bronx, rather. And we're talking about the scene of the crime. And the writing is great, the scene of the crime. I was standing here, the lamppost was shining over the body. I saw the guy's face. Guess what? Where they've decided to shoot the scene, there is no lamppost. Oh, fuck. We have like 20 more minutes of light. The writer then phones in and says, here's the new scene, and gives it to the second AD over the mic, and then the second AD gives you the new lines by just saying them to you. Okay, now go. I kid you not. Change it. And I was like, why, when I come to rehearse on set, do the principals never have their lines? Like, why are they holding sides? Because that's when they learn their lines. And they've got 12 more hours of shooting. That's when they learn their lines. And I'll tell you, on Blue Bloods, Donnie said to me, he was like, I can't learn the lines ahead of time anyway, because then I know what's coming up in the next scene. And I have to not know in order for me to play it truthfully. I was like, he's like, because I've been playing this character for a long time. I've been playing this formula for a long time. So it has to be a surprise to me if I know too much, right? And so he is there on set asking himself questions and asking the director as if he's like, well, if the lamppost was turned that way, wouldn't I really know this? The director was like, oh, wow, you're right. They are doing it in real time. That's why the shows and the formula never get stale to us. It's actually really happening to them. They're figuring it out through the language, right? And through their subconscious. I would solve this crime by asking this question and they're like, well, if I'm gonna make this believable, I actually have to believe that I can solve this and I don't know all the details ahead of time. Hence the language changes to make it work, right? To make the given variables work. And on shows with lots of text, like Bull and like House of Cards, pages and pages and pages and pages get handed to you in the makeup chair that are completely different from the script you have at home that was updated last night and was sent to you. And I don't mean a little bit of difference. I mean, there's a scene missing and there's a new scene in its place, right? On Bull, the actors hand write out their lines on pieces of paper and tape it across from them or tape it on the camera. Because they know the camera guys are like, well, you're going to be my camera here to the left. Okay, I'm going to take my lines here, right? And you never know that they're reading lines. They're completely present because it's not about the lines. It's about the psychology of the character. Hence, this whole thing they used to teach us in school, oh, you just hold the paper so people don't expect a full performance. That's actually bullshit. You don't hold the paper. There should be no paper in your hands. You should just walk in and play the scene. And the camera needs to know that, as Hillary is saying, and they know that watching a person try to figure out a puzzle is way more interesting than watching a person who has figured it out already. Voila. That's the deal, right? So as my Meisner teacher used to say, you use the lines as the equipment to make contact. That's how we used to do nursery rhymes. She'd be like, I would like you to play a murder scene, but the only lines you have are Mary Had a Little Lamb. What? She's like, because it's not about the lines. It's about shaping the emotional and subconscious reality of this world. The lines could be anything, which is why they need to be in your body by rote, no acting attached. Because when you try and attach an action to a line, you're only going to remember the line if you're doing that action, if you're pursuing that agenda, if you're pursuing that goal, which totally fucking sucks. That's why when you get into an audition, you're like, I have sculpted this shit. And then the person opposite you gives you nothing. And you're like, why is nothing happening? Because you're trying to make it happen and you're actually not listening to what they're truly saying to you. So that is the entire rationale behind memorizing lines by rote with no acting attached as fast as you can. It's a bitch and a half. Ready to go? Mm-hmm. It's so exciting. When you get this, you'll be like, oh my God, I have been working way too hard. It is so easy. It's just like, I was like, well, I pay people $75,000 in the first year to learn how to do what? I didn't go to school to learn how to do this. I just needed somebody to teach me to do this, to listen and respond. I was like, what? But of course, I needed to do 3 years of plays to make this organic to my body and second nature and completely natural. So yes, I did. But this is a different skill set. And you'll be so happy because you're like, wait a minute, I could make $1,000 in the next 10 minutes by just walking in here and listening to somebody. That's it. It's the easiest money you've ever made. It's actually just the easiest money you've ever made.
Because listening is interesting. It's interesting. The camera wants to see you listening. It's interesting. It's fascinating because everybody does it a different way in different circumstances. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. And chemistry happens, as somebody was my headshot photographer, who's actually just a filmmaker who doesn't know it, who's a genius, was like, it's like, I just love watching you know him and know how to get him to do what you want. I was like, what? He's like, I felt like I was watching a husband and a wife. She know how to get, it ain't about what she's saying. It's about, well, you know, it's about, okay, I'm going to back up and be a little demure. Oh, teach me. It's like, you know how to work him. And we enjoy watching you work him. That's subconscious. I was like, oh. That's why when I got on set, I was like, I got to run lines. And Michael was like, come to my dressing room. I want to show you pictures of my kids. I was like, okay, are we going to run lines? Yeah. We ran lines for like 10 seconds, talked to his kids on FaceTime. And then we talked about how he met his wife. And then we went and did the scene. And that's why the scene was so good. It was about, oh my God, I love you so much. He made me fall in love with him in like 15 minutes over pizza. Because he actually is that guy, right? And the director was like, oh, you two, you're going to work out fine. I was thinking, he's like, it's going to be fine. And then I got there and he was like, oh my God. And he just gave me a hug and he's like, this is going to be fine. I was like, how do you know? We just know each other. I was like, we do? Yeah, smart Alex. We're like, we're smarter than everybody. Let me show you this is going to go. And we're really tough, but we're really softies. I was like, whoa, how do you know that? He's like, it's just, you know it. Now, let's just talk. It's not about the lines. But the lines are your tools for making contact and getting what you need. So I am going to say a line really fast, Jonah, and then I want you to repeat it 9 times.